Am I the a-hole for not paying for my niece's college even though I can? I, 45 female, and my husband Jay, 49 male, have 4 children. Ted, 20 male, Susan, 18 female, and Vicky, 9 female, and Charles, 7 male. The older 2 children are biologically my male cousin's kids. Him and his wife unfortunately passed away when the kids were just 2 years and 3 months old. None of the family members were able to or wanted to take in the children at the time. I was the youngest and still in med school then, but my husband was financially stable. He was extremely fond of Ted. Susan had just been born, so he suggested we become legal guardians for the time being, and it was the best decision of my life. Last week, at a family get-together, Susan announced she got a full scholarship to her dream university. My female cousin then pulled me aside to tell me that my other niece was 18 now and had gotten accepted into the same university as Susan. I congratulated her, but then she said I have to transfer Susan's and Ted's, he got scholarship as well, college funds to her account to pay for her niece's tuition and living expenses as the university was out of state. I thought she was joking and laughed in her face, but she glared at me and told me that since I was going to pay for Ted and Susan, I have to pay for her daughter as well because both are my nieces. I said Ted and Susan were mine and Jay's children. We formally adopted them. But she said since Ted, Susan, and her daughter were first cousins, she's sibling of my late male cousin, they are the same, and my children don't need it anyways. I was extremely annoyed at this point, and said even so, it was still their money, and for them to do as they please. She left it at that, and I thought it was over. But today, she called me saying she was willing to forgive my appalling behavior if I paid for my niece's tuition and living expenses as an apology gift. I told her she was out of her mind and hung up. After cooling down a bit and thought maybe I should just suck it up and pay it to keep the peace and was talking with my husband about it, and he told me I was not obligated to help and it should be my decision. I finally decided not to. Now family members are calling me an a-hole because I broke my niece's dreams over some grudge. It's not that I hate her, but her behavior towards my children and family has never been the best. And my niece has never tried to reach out or bond with my kids, instead has sometimes belittled them, but that is another story. All relatives know this, so they think that is the reason, and well, that is a part of it. So, am I the a-hole for not paying for my niece's college even though I can? Edited to add, when she called me, she did not ask for my children's funds, as I had made it clear that I wasn't going to give it. She instead wants me to give her money out of our savings. That is why I'm asking. I would never give my children's funds, but maybe I'm the a-hole for not giving money from savings which we still leave enough for retirement. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. They are your children, not your nieces. Blood relations don't matter here, and your cousin suggesting otherwise is vile. She is responsible to come up with a college fund for her kids. As you have realized, it would be punishing them for doing great enough to get scholarships to just give the money you saved for them away. She should ask for your forgiveness, not the other way around. She is out of her mind here. They should be calling your cousin an a-hole over not considering to help out her own daughter. She didn't work hard enough to get a scholarship. And your cousin seems to have tried not to save or be willing to help cover the cost. If they call you, they can help out. Easy as that. Also, if niece has treated your kids badly, she doesn't really have anything to say here. She made her own bed. Not the a-hole. Even if you did want to pay for their college, there's no reason to wire her the money. Niece is an adult now after all. If the money should be going to anyone, it's either to niece or to the college directly. However, you have no obligation to pay at all. Plus, even with full-ride scholarships, it's not like the school is going to be giving them money for anything but the necessities. They'd probably still like to have the money so they can have fun and enjoy college. Wow. Just wow. You are clearly not the a-hole, but your cousin is so much the a-hole that I'm astonished that the rest of your family can't see it plain as day. When I started to read this, I saw that you had adopted Ted and Susan. I was nervously expecting that by niece, you meant that you didn't want to pay for Susan's university despite having adopted her, and was all set to say you're the a-hole. Only if you were paying for your own bio kids, mind you. But this? You are obviously a lovely, loving, generous parent, not only to your bio kids, but to Ted and Susan, who you have made clear you see entirely as your children as well, and have provided for in the same manner as if they were born to you. And I won't say that that's beautiful. Although we see too many people in this sub treat adopted or stepkids differently, because what it is really is simply appropriate. But for your cousin's sister to shift her parenting and financial responsibilities onto you, despite the fact that her child hasn't lost any parents, is not your reward and be so obnoxious as to simultaneously make an incredibly huge and inappropriate financial demand of you. And to denigrate your relationship with Ted and Susan, your adoptive children, by insisting that they are no different from your other nieces or nephews, is beyond horrifying. This gets said time and again on the sub, but it bears repeating. The fact that you have money does not mean that you owe that money to anyone else, including extended family. Nor does the fact that they want that money. Your niece has her own parents, and she is their responsibility. Ted and Susan are now your children, and have no one else to take responsibility for them. Again, you are not the a-hole, but your sister cousin absolutely is. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay for my niece and nephew's college? So I, 28 female, have been married to my husband John, 38 male, for the last 4 years. John comes from a very rich family, whereas I come from a very poor family. From the moment I introduced John to my parents and siblings, 43 female Allie, 38 male Anthony, and 37 male Bill, my sister has made snide comments about how I'm a kept woman, how I looked for a man to take care of me, and how I'm basically a sugar baby. None of that is true. I have a very high-paying job. And honestly, I didn't even know John was rich for the first few months we were dating, because he lives a very laid-back normal life. He told me about his wealth when he asked me to meet his parents because he didn't want me to be caught off guard when meeting them. I got contact with Allie not long after John proposed to me, because she started sending nudes to John, telling him to leave me for her, etc. There was a big fight when he turned her down. Then she called him a cradle robber and some other less than pleasant things. This was 4 years ago. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago when I got a call from my mom asking me to come to dinner at her house. I thought nothing of it, and John and I went. Imagine my surprise when my sister and her kids, 18 male and 18 female, showed not long after. John and I wanted to leave then and there, but my mom begged us to stay and listen, so we did. Apparently, Anthony and Bill had let it slip that I had helped them out with paying tuition for my 2 nephews and niece. Because of this, Allie asked me if I was willing to help her pay for her kids too. When she asked me this, I was stunned because I know that the twins' late father had left enough money for them to attend college. When I asked her about that money, she said she had to spend half of it to pay bills the last 2 years, because the pandemic hit them hard when she lost her job. I told her this was sad, but I'm not helping her pay for their tuition because 1, we haven't spoken in 4 years, 2, she has been nasty to me my entire life, and 3, she hasn't even apologized for what she did to me. She said all that was in the past, and that I should just move on. This made me even angrier, and I just left without saying anything else to her. My mom has been calling me every day since, asking me to just give them the money because I can't afford it. Anthony and Bill apologized for telling her what I did for them, and said they will support any decision I make. My sister posted online about how I was being a greedy aunt who refuses to help her less wealthy family, and I have been getting some hate from people. Some of Allie's friends even called to tell me I was being petty. My husband, even though he is angry and embarrassed by the situation, said he will support me no matter what decision I make. I kind of feel like an a-hole in this whole situation, because I could help my sister out with the tuition, but I am just refusing to because of how she has treated me my entire life. So I want some stranger's opinion on if I'm being an a-hole here. Not an a-hole. She slags you off, sends inappropriate images to your partner telling him to leave you, then goes crazy when told no and don't speak for 4 years, then comes in an organized ambush, shows up at an unexpected dinner invite from your mother, and just comes out with this? My god, what a such a must-have. Holy crap. And to be honest, your mother is not far off as bad for what she is doing either, knowing what she has done. This isn't a live and let die situation in my opinion. I am astonished by the audacity of the sister and mother. What the sister did is a serious betrayal that warrants no contact. However, the mother expecting Opie to bury the hatchet is like condoning Allie's behavior. What gets to me is that Allie didn't even apologize just once. I bet Allie got her attitude and entitlement from her mother, since mom is not far off. Not a hole. You have no obligation to sponsor your niece and nephew's education. It is not your responsibility at all. Also, just because you are better off, it does not mean your family is automatically entitled to your money. And finally, Ellie does not deserve any help from all she had done. Not at A-Hall times 1000. She started sending nudes to John, telling him to leave me for her, etc. There was a big fight when she turned her down. She called him a cradle robber and some other less than pleasant things. This crap right here, you don't owe her a damn thing for the rest of your life. She tried and failed miserably to seduce your husband. She is jealous she didn't get the rich husband and has been bitter about it ever since. Screw her. She just wants to use you for money. Actions have consequences. These are hers. That being said, if you want to help your niece and nephew with the debt quietly later on, that's always an option. But keep her out of it. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not wanting to share my college fund? I, 19 female, have an aunt, Amy, 38 female, who I love and she loves me dearly. It's never been explicitly stated, but between my sister Kim, 17 female, and I'm the favorite niece. I didn't really notice. I was around my early teens. But whenever I had an event, my aunt would always try to be there, while she was never there for anything my sister did. I got nicer presents, there are pictures of me in her house, and she texts/calls me regularly. She barely acknowledges my sister, and I never knew why. One of the reasons why it took so long for me to notice was because whenever someone would mention something about a different treatment, our mom would brush it off. And since Amy was my paternal aunt, I just accepted it. Fast forward to now, and my mom sat me down and asked me if I would be willing to go to a less expensive school so I could have extra money to share with Kim. Aunt Amy set up a fund for me and my two cousins but didn't have a dime for Kim. She did this with Kim looking at me for an answer, and got upset that I didn't give a definite yes. She accused me of not caring about her just like Aunt Amy, and is refusing to speak to me until I give her half the money. I thought that this was wildly unfair, and asked my parents why they didn't have their own fund for Kim since Aunt Amy was taking care of me. They said that they did, but it wasn't as much as what Aunt Amy had for me. She's a smart woman who makes a lot of money, and admitted that they had to dip into it to help pay for things when my dad wasn't working because of COVID. I feel bad for Kim, but I don't want to sacrifice my future college experience for it. Am I really being so maliciously selfish? Now for the comments. Not at a-hole. Amy can do what she likes with her money, and you should be able to go to whichever school you choose. However, I'm surprised your parents haven't called Amy on this. If it was me, I need to sit down with Amy and ask her outright why there's favoritism. That's something I've started to ask now that I'm aware. My aunt always said she loved her siblings' children equally, and whenever Kim complained growing up, my parents would brush it off. Is there any chance that she thinks your younger sister is an affair child and not biologically her niece? That is the only explanation I could think of. But it still makes no sense that Kim would be treated differently if your father treats her as an equal daughter. Everyone sucks here. You knew there was favoritism. You witnessed it. It is quite hard to believe you didn't take advantage of that favoritism. Let's be real for a minute. That being said, it was given to you and it's yours to do with as you please. Your aunt is a giant a-hole, and so are your parents for not being objective enough to see it when it started. Your sister will resent you. She's right to do so because you took advantage of the situation instead of calling it out, and possibly having to share many years ago. You reap what you sow. My take on this is that it's a hell of a thing to be asked to give up a college fund, so I wouldn't blame Opie if the answer was no. However, if her sister hates her for the rest of her life and thinks she's scummy, it would be hard to argue that the sister is wrong. You're the a-hole. Yes, of course, you have no obligation to share your fund. It's within every right to go to the more expensive school and have your parents figure it out. However, I don't know how you could morally be okay with accepting all of this money fully aware there was favoritism, and your sister continues to get the crappy end of everything. If I had the opportunity to help my little sister, damn right I'd split it with her. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife I won't/can't watch our son? I have a good job, I make good money, and I work hard enough to earn it. To the point that about 4 years ago after our son was born, when my wife decided not to go back to work, I became the only source of income. This worked out well and everyone was happy, until COVID hit. Once the pandemic started causing shutdowns, my role was transitioned from an office downtown to working from home. I was a big fan of this. I work 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday typically, So not having to commute meant that now I got to be home to put my son to bed and read him at night, and have more time to spend with my wife in the evenings. The only problem is that my wife has struggled with the idea that the location of my job has changed, but my responsibilities have not. I've had several discussions with her about the fact that even though I'm home now, I'm not able to watch our son during the day, or explaining why I can't get to the dishes till that evening. She will nod along too, but I don't think she really believes it. This has caused tension but not an outright fight until this week. Some of our mutual friends are coming into town this weekend, and we had made plans to spend time with them. However, on Monday, my wife informs me that the couple is actually getting in Friday, and she and her friend are going to get lunch and go shopping. She tells me that I need to watch our son, and I respond by saying again that I can't. I have work, and Monday to Friday is not enough heads up for me to take a day off. She gets angry at me, saying she watches our son every day while I just sit in my office from sunup to sundown, and how I should be able to watch our son so she can have a day off. She's given me the cold shoulder since then. I would love to spend a day with my son. I just can't take the time off in such short notice. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but working 14 hours per day, 6 days a week is simply not sustainable for any family or marriage. I was just going to say the same thing. It's great that he can provide, but the lack of time at home with the family is taking its toll. What kind of job requires those hours anyway? One working with coders from Seattle to Warsaw. Everyone sucks here. Your wife is an a-hole for expecting you to take time off rather last minute. You are an a-hole because you are putting all of the child rearing on her even if she is a stay-at-home mom. This boy's still your son. You're working 14-hour days. 6 days a week is freaking ridiculous. Very few relationships can even last with work hours like this. If I am correct, you are a project manager in a tech company. If this is the case, you are salaried. You aren't getting paid more to work overtime. It really makes me wonder if you are messing around your computer most of the day, which leads to these hours. That, or you work at a crappy company. While overtime is common in the tech industry, 80 hours plus weeks are not. Even the people I know making $200,000 a year in tech only average 50 or so hour weeks. Something isn't right with us. You really need to start focusing on your family, or else you won't have them anymore.